I do remember at the last minute being like, this baby's coming, and I have no idea how to feed it.
I was producing so much. Honestly, sometimes I felt a bit like a milk truck.
Your milk is bespoke. It's exclusively made for your baby, which is really, really cool.
You need to be incredibly generous to just give even more to that little creature that already is taking everything from you, you know?
Even though it is almost one of the most natural things that women can do, there is still so much which is shrouded in mystery. Before we get started, if you could press follow or subscribe, that would be amazing. It makes a huge difference and it will help me get this information out to more people who need it. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. And today we are talking all about breastfeeding. I'm going to be honest, as a 31-year-old woman who has never had a baby and who has never fed a baby from my breast, this is a topic that I knew very little about. And then about a month ago, I asked our guest today, V2, whether she would like to be on the podcast. And she sent me a voice note. And I have to say, I learned more in that 5 minutes of listening to that voice note, V2, than I had done in any of my 31 years of life. So thank you for that. And that brings us very seamlessly on to introducing our guest today, Victoria, aka V2, very close friend of mine, a full-time employee, very talented arts and crafter, interior designer, and also, very importantly, mum to the beautiful one-year-old Isabella. So welcome, V2. So nice to have you.
Thank you, Issy.
V2, if you could sum up the first year or so of motherhood in one sentence, what would you say?
First of all, I actually think I'm a bit dramatic in general because obviously I'm Spanish. I would say actually exciting, but at the same time, incredibly challenging. Sorry to say.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. And you, of all people, have never been somebody who's talked about motherhood through rose-tinted glasses. I know that you love your daughter very, very much, but I have appreciated so much how you've spoken about the hard parts as well.
Completely. I think, yeah, very, very hard, but at the same time, the love that you get from it and everything is worth it. But yeah, I think I'm very honest.
That's exactly what we need. So thank you. And then our expert today, the person with all the answers and who has literally seen it all before, is Arielle Ball. Arielle is an infant feeding, I'm going to say that again. Arielle is an infant feeding specialist and an IBCLC, which means she's an international board certified lactation consultant. Basically, you're very highly qualified at what you do.
Yeah.
And proud mum of 2, you're passionate about helping families thrive on their feeding journeys, really whatever that is.
Everything from pregnancy all the way to their starting solids. So,
What would you say is the most rewarding part of the work that you do?
I think when you see a family and they've really gone through lots of struggles, and sometimes you feel like you're their last port of call, and you've now given them hope, and you've given them a solid plan, and they move forward with success. So that's probably the most rewarding thing, is being able to be that answer.
I love that. We are going to start today with a little icebreaker. And this is not an icebreaker that I can contribute to for reasons that will become apparent very quickly. I want to start this with a caveat. I am somebody who, when I see somebody breastfeeding or feeding their baby, whether that is on a tube, in a restaurant, in a park, I am like, yes, thank you, keep it coming. What can I do to make you comfortable? However, I would imagine that there might have been a few situations where you thought, wow, this is weird. So my question to you both is, where is the strangest place that you have fed your baby?
Mine actually not that weird, but yes, actually I come from a very traditional family, and actually I gave birth in Spain, and I went to my parents' house, and I did not know how to breastfeed in the beginning. So I literally remember being completely naked, but instead of being only with my husband, just being with my whole family. So my grandmother coming, my granddad coming, my dad coming, and everyone was just like, what's going on here? So it just became like a completely normal, just to be completely, not even with like 1 hour, this is completely top off. So I think the weirdest place has been my own house with my family. It was just quite shocking, you know?
I don't have brothers, but there is something about dads seeing you in that kind of situation where you're like, "Oh, this is weird." I even feel it when I'm talking about my trying to conceive journey on Instagram. I see my dad or my father-in-law like one of my videos, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that."
I completely, yeah. So yeah, it was very weird. But then
Yes.
it became very normal, which I actually thought
Yeah.
it was very nice.
And it's really lovely that you're able to be that comfortable as well, as you should be. Thank you. Arielle, do you have one that comes to mind?
Mean, I fed everywhere. So, my babies were birthed in Florida. So, I fed on Disney park rides. There's us feeding in the Little Mermaid and on the People Mover, which was the best one because we would be sitting for a very long period of time. Fed at weddings, fed everywhere. But I would say probably my first baby, I, probably had those same inhibitions that V2 did. But then it was kind of more empowering to feed in public. But oddly, with the second baby, it was like everyone was expecting me to just feed anywhere and everywhere. And I actually weirdly felt uncomfortable. And that was probably just all in my head. But I actually found more of an excuse to make it a little bit more private when I could. So it's really interesting how your brain does certain things. But yeah, I fed anywhere and everywhere.
Thank you so much. It seems like breastfeeding in particular is a topic that, even though it is highly, highly normal, probably almost one of the most natural things that women can do, um, there is still so much which is shrouded in mystery. So I'm hoping that we can just demystify a little bit of that. First of all, I would love to know, is breast really best? And by that, I mean, what are actually the science-led benefits for both the baby and for the mother?
I think that it's not just breast is best. I'd really like to kind of take away that statement in and of itself. I think informed is best. So when you're asking about the different benefits, that's a great way to really give yourself informed choice. So I think we know a lot of the different benefits when it comes down to babies. So we know that breast milk is alive, it's full of antibodies, white blood cells, bioactive factors. It helps fight infections. It changes from day to night. It changes throughout baby's age. And the benefits of breastfeeding aren't just in that moment for that baby or for that mom. It lasts a lifetime. So it's helping with baby's brain development. It reduces different kind of chronic illnesses, babies with ear infections, asthma, allergies, type 1 diabetes, obesity, heart problems, all of those different things. It's going to lower the risk of a lot of different illnesses. That means babies have fewer hospital visits to their GPs, which if you kind of go to the other end of things, that means if you return to work as a parent, you're going to take less time off of work and less visits to the hospital or to the GP or time off of work with a sick baby. But I think some of the unknown things that people don't know about breastfeeding is more of the mother aspect. We just think of it as a bond. It's the bond, it's the bond, it's the bond. And yes, it is the bond. Don't get me wrong, you're pumped full of oxytocin and prolactin and all sorts of really cool hormones that, lower having postnatal, perinatal mood disorders such as like depression or anxieties. However, it also can reduce certain kinds of cancers in mothers. And the longer that you breastfeed will lower those risks. There's things like postnatal recovery and getting that uterus back into shape and reducing things like type 2 diabetes and low blood pressure and helping with weight regulation way on into postmenopause. So the benefits of breastfeeding can last a lifetime for both baby and mom. So it's really quite cool.
That's fascinating. I didn't know a lot of those things. B2, did you?
I actually got goosebumps at the same time as you were saying it because I breastfeed. But I actually was thinking, like, for all those people that they haven't breastfeed, like, is it is it that bad to give formula? Because it's just like, yes, this is incredibly beneficial, but like, I just feel it can put a lot of pressure in woman.
I was thinking exactly the same thing, B2. Yeah, so when is it right for somebody not to breastfeed? And what can we say to those people who, for whatever reason, have decided that they will not be breastfeeding, or who have tried to breastfeed and it's not worked for them, to reassure them that they are still giving their child and themselves a good start?
When it comes down to formula, that is food. That is food that's going to make your baby thrive. And it is about knowing these benefits. It is about making informed choice because I think a lot of people don't know these things. We're going breast milk and formula are the same. And it's not. Yes, breastfeeding does sound amazing with all of its benefits. And that's why it's going to be a lifetime for me of finding out all these amazing things about it. There are some parents who cannot breastfeed, whether they're taking a certain kind of medication, or which it is very, very rare that medication doesn't work or there isn't an alternative one, or if the baby has galactosemia. I will put my hand up and say I have never, ever, out of the thousands of babies that I've had, ever met a baby who has that. Basically, it's just kind of when a baby it cannot actually take in breast milk. It is um it's so rare. It's so very, very rare. And yeah, there are women who have trouble with low milk production. So maybe they have underlying conditions that affect lactation. There's a couple little things, but that doesn't mean that they won't be able to make milk. It just means that they might not be able to have a full supply. So it doesn't have to be an all or none type of thing. But they are probably going to need some level of support.
Sorry if this is a really silly question, but let's say you were doing one feed a day, which was breast milk, and then you were supplementing with formula. Would that still be beneficial?
It actually would. I think sometimes my clients will actually say stuff like, this is their vitamins, this is their antibodies, this is like building their immune system one little step at a time. So some people, yes. Is it worth it when it comes down to the balance of mental health? If somebody is pumping around the clock just for one bottle, that's up to the individual of that person. And only that person is going to know whether that balances out. Sometimes I do think it's not necessarily worth it for that person if they're really struggling with their mental health and they're taking all of this time to be expressing and expressing and expressing just for a small amount. And sometimes it's best to kind of let things go. But that is really up to the individual on what they want to do. And they're only going to know in their own time what feels right for them.
And only breastfed for, let's say, a month or 2 months, is that still beneficial?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The World Health Organization and many organizations really push for that exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. And then for both mom and baby's health, they'll talk about any amount of breastfeeding for 2 years. Those are those really good maximum benefits. But any amount of breastfeeding is going to be really, really good. It's creating that gut microbiome and all of that stuff from the very, very early age. So any amount of breastfeeding is absolutely beneficial, even if it's 1 day, 2 months, a year, 5 years, whatever it might be.
If you weren't to be breastfeeding yourself, what are your alternatives?
Yeah, so there is human donor milk. So in the hospital, they will actually take in donor milk from all different people and they do kind of like a pasteurization. This is really, really good for our preemie babies or our very, very ill babies because of, again, all those amazing benefits of human milk. It's not necessarily as good as mother's own milk because it has gone through a pasteurization process, but it is significantly better than that of just formula. But a lot of people will choose to do donor milk from their local community or from a family member, and just trying to get those benefits of other types of milk. You'll see that a lot with adoptive babies. They'll be searching out for other kinds of milk, or they might be using milk from their um, birthing parent. So there's all different alternatives before you move on to formula. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really cool.
I remember being in hospital in the beginning, and I actually did had a lot of milk. Like I was producing loads, and I remember the midwives coming and saying like, actually, you could feed everyone on the floor. Like I actually regretted a lot because in that moment, of course, it's the first baby, you're struggling low. You don't know, but I actually would have loved to maybe help others.
But I can imagine that at that point, you're really not thinking about other people or other babies.
Absolutely. No guilt at all.
No.
And if you have the empowerment to be able to do that, if you have another child, great. But that is definitely not normative of a first-time mom to be also giving away her milk while trying to learn the whole new skill that their baby's trying to learn too. So absolutely no guilt at all. But yeah, it sounds like you had a significant amount of milk, which comes with its own set of challenges.
Which we will definitely be going into. This is a silly question, maybe, but how often does a baby need to be fed? Vitu's looking at me like,
No, like a
All the
lot, you
time.
know,
Vito's like all the
all the
time.
time.
Um, this is a really good one, and that's exactly kind of this relates just back to what we were just talking about. When Vito just gave birth to her baby, all she can wrap her head around is how do I feed this baby? But again, not being able to recover, whether it was a rainbows and unicorn beautiful birth or actually a true, very traumatic birth. It's a lot. You are now on the clock 24/7. Even when you're sleeping, you've got like one ear open to these babies' needs. But what we know is that babies have super tiny tummies. They're going to feed typically every 2 to 3 hours, but sometimes they'll go through a level of what we call like cluster feeding, where they seem to be feeding a whole lot more frequently, and it feels like it's gone for a longer period of time. But we usually say that a baby's going to feed somewhere between 8 to 12 times and 24, or every 2 to 3 hours. But our babies can't tell time, and it's more important for us to actually look at what our baby's trying to tell us. And it's really, really neat if, let's say, you were going out and V2 had like this 2-month-old baby, and she's like, oh, I have to feed the baby right now, because she's looking at these subtle cues that maybe no one else knows. They know when this baby is like, I've got a few minutes or seconds before I need to be fed right now, or we're all going to hear about it in this restaurant. V2's like, like this is about to go off. And that's because she's not responding to the baby's clock. She's not responding to an app. She's responding to her baby's subtle cues. So a lot of times parents miss that because they're too busy like charting things in an app, and then alarms going off. I need to feed my baby. And they're missing what their baby's been trying to communicate. So I say, don't worry about the paper. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about the app. Listen to your baby, because your baby's going to tell you.
I just remember Isabella sleeping through the nights from like day one. And I remember all the midwives that they were coming and they were like, you need to wake her up like every 3 hours maximum. And I was just like thinking, no, if she's sleeping, if the baby's not asking for it, do you really need to feed them?
Yeah, you do. You do. They really do need that nourishment because that tummy is so tiny every 2, 3 hours. So we definitely need to be rousing
Yeah.
baby to try to feed them again. And even if it's just a quick manual expression and a few little drops in their mouth, they're like, oh, okay. Because if we go too long, then it becomes more
Yeah.
of a challenge as things progress.
Actually, they don't wake up until you do those type of things, no? Like put a wipe wet over the body, the little milk drops on the mouth.
You think about it, they're getting the energy
Yeah.
to wake up now. So if we keep feeding them, we're giving them that energy. But if we don't feed them for a long period of time, especially in those early days, then we're not giving them the energy that they need to be able to do these normal baby things.
Okay, one more question and then we're going to go into V2's story. Why is breast milk, often called liquid gold.
It really comes from that early breast milk color, that colostrum. It comes from all those benefits, all that benefits that we talked about for mom and baby. And it also comes from a lot of people like to use it for all sorts of other things that are not breastfeeding related. Sometimes people want to use it for babies having like pink eye or things like that.
Wow.
You know that whole saying where they're like, put some coconut oil on it. They'll do the same thing with breast milk. So it's because of those antimicrobial factors, the fact that a mom, her body is starting to create the antibodies for her baby from everything that's going on in their environment has now touched mom's breast and started to create this whole feedback. And now mom's starting to create all these different antibodies to help them fight off these illnesses.
Well, I remember the acne. You cannot put any cream. You cannot put anything. She had lots of baby acne that is very common on babies. And I remember everyone telling me put the breast milk on her acne. It does work.
Did it work?
Does.
That is
Yeah.
literally mind-blowing, isn't it? It's
Insane.
just
Completely.
magic. So V2, can you tell me first, did you always want to breastfeed your baby even before you were pregnant or before you were planning on having children?
I don't think I knew what I wanted to do, but I think in Spain, I think there's much more culture of just the opposite of breastfeeding. I just feel like more the people around me, they actually tend to do like more formula than breastfeeding. But of course, I married an Englishman. I live in London, and I've been doing all the NCT here, all the breastfeeding course. Even that I gave birth in Spain. So anyway, they introduced me to the breastfeeding. Everyone was just saying that it was very beneficial, and I think that's why I decided to go for it. I just feel everyone around my circle in the UK was going to judge me if I did not do breastfeeding. And it sounds very bad for me as a mom to say that maybe I did it for that reason, but maybe actually one of the big reasons I did the breastfeeding was like I did not want to feel guilty for not doing it and be guilty for everyone around me thinking that that was the right way to do it.
I think that's so honest, and I think so many people will resonate with that. Like with my hypothetical future child, I don't really have any desire to breastfeed my child from a personal point of view. I think I would do it because I thought it was the right thing to do. And also, yeah, you're right, because of maybe stigma around not doing it.
I love everything you've said before, because actually it's literally what you said. I think everyone should be informed, and it's just very hard to get well informed around breastfeeding.
I think what was interesting in what you said was you had societal pressures from the group of people that you happened to land in. But the bigger challenge is that the vast majority of people in the UK don't have that pressure. They're on the opposing end where they don't know anyone who's ever breastfed. They've never seen a baby breastfeed type thing in public or whatever, where there's been shame or stigma around that. And for most people, we've had that heavily marketing formula industry, $100 billion industry, the formula industry. So we're all buying into that. It stinks that there's all of these negative stigmas on either side and societal pressures that happen.
But on the other side of that, I'm looking at those people who've got jobs which require them to be up and about, who can't afford to be taking a long maternity leave, or who need to go back almost straight away. And there needs to be the support out there for those people as well.
Aside from like the work related, I also feel it's such a personal choice. And I think it becomes like such a controversial like conversation, because like everyone has so many different opinions. And I am very happy to say it openly. I do have lots of friends that they said to me from the very beginning, they're not gonna breastfeed, they're gonna do formula. Because in a way, aside even from the work side, is like it's a way of stopping their life. And the only thing I can say from my personal opinion and perspective is, I think, and I always said this, breastfeeding, I think, is the biggest act of generosity that you can do for your baby.
V2, can you describe, as somebody who has never had a child, an infant suckling at my breast, What is that first experience of breastfeeding like?
I did a breastfeeding course, and the only image that I had in my mind, it was that apparently, which is also incredible, the baby they put they put it to you normally. They ask you skin to skin, and then one of the things that you do for the first lad is that the baby kind of like climbs with their little legs, and actually it's a way to be able to also get rid of the placenta. So it's just like the baby's helping you with their little legs by climbing little by little, which is such a natural animal thing. And they're pushing your placenta away at the same time as they're reaching and trying to find for your breast. I was just trying to just find that magical, incredible moment. And I just remember everyone in the room disappeared after having 11 people. And I just remember being with my husband, with the baby. And we were just like, I was just lying down there, just like, okay, try to find it, baby, you know? And, and it could, like, Isabella couldn't latch at all. Like, it was just so funny, but at the same time, like I'm saying this in a funny way now, but it was like incredibly frustrating.
Can you describe what it actually feels like?
In the beginning, I would say for me, it was like very painful, again, because it was probably not latching properly. But in the beginning, I think it was just your nipple is just like quite irritated. It is not very nice feeling. It hurts loads. But then when you know how to start breastfeeding again, it's just doesn't hurt at all. It's a completely natural thing to do, and actually maybe sometimes it actually it was the best feeling ever, because your boobs, I say boobs, like your boobs have loads and loads and loads of milk, and the way of relieving that pain is the baby to just get that milk out. So as soon as you put the baby, it's not painful anymore. So actually it's a very nice, good feeling.
So were there any moments where you just thought, wow, this is not easy?
I would say when the milk came up, I promise. I think even the hardest of all of it, of giving birth, of everything. Obviously, there are hormones that you have the days after you give birth. I just remember crying and crying and crying and crying, calling a friend's wife, just saying, is this normal? I don't know what to do. This is horrible. Saying I need someone either to teach me straight away or let's go to formula. And this is me. I am one of the most like stubborn person in the world. So I understand why also many women, they want to give up.
When your breast milk comes in, is that when you go from having the colostrum to having the actual breast milk? Is that right? Or is it something?
It's like a balloon just that is going to explode. But also because your body needs to adjust, right? Like your body's producing lots of milk because they don't know how much milk your baby's going to ask you, right? Arielle, jump in because probably I'm explaining this very badly.
No, you're not. You're explaining it perfectly. And yeah, if the breast is like a balloon, or I even think about it as like an apple, if the baby, it's hard to latch on. It's almost like, sometimes even taking that first bite of the apple is really, really challenging to do. But once you do, it's really easy to go around. Same thing. So if the breast is super duper duper hard, that baby's going to pop on and off and on and off. So we do have to soften the breast. And there are techniques like manual lymphatic drainage so that we can just soften the area that the baby's going to latch onto so that the latch isn't painful where they're just sucking on the nipple. Because I think, Izzy, for you, this would be interesting. Most people wouldn't know, but they're not actually sucking on the nipple itself. They actually take in that breast tissue. And the pain happens when they are just compressing that nipple in the hard palate, this front bit of the mouth, versus all the way back into the soft palate. One thing that I always say is it's your first dance together. So if your instincts are saying this isn't working or this is painful, it's your instinct to either, like you said, reach out and try to get support or try something different.
I think this podcast is going to help loads, but because you were saying, yes, there's ways of like make your breast softer to be softener to be able to breastfeed. But the thing is, like, I wouldn't have known that. Like, just massage all that area to be it's softer. I remember watching like YouTube videos and imagine all the people out there that they don't know.
Yeah. So what I will say is some of these things will actually cause more challenges. So think about it. Our breasts are in an inflammatory state at this point in time. Think about if you sprained your ankle. you're probably not going to book a massage for that. We're going to stick it in ice. Ice is key. The biggest key when our breasts are that swollen. We want to kind of stay away from heat and all of those kind of things because ice is going to bring down, heat's going to exacerbate that. So it's icing every 1 to 2 hours, 20 minutes. I've had many people at home, maybe 2 bags of frozen peas, and really bringing that down because they look, like you say, like they're like basketballs for some people.
V2, can I ask, did you exclusively breastfeed or did you use bottles as well?
So I did only breastfeed in the very beginning, like first month. I think this is obviously very personal again. I think I would have loved to maybe introduce the bottle a bit earlier, even though I actually introduced it on month 2. But I did not because of the fear of the baby not latching properly. So one of the things I understood was like if you were to offer a dummy or a bottle, the breast obviously is different. Therefore, like maybe the latch of the baby could affect that latching process. So I was just like very much into the mind of like, no way I'm gonna do any bottle. No way I was gonna do dummy. Said this, I introduced it in month 2 only for nights. Why? Because I was exhausted. My husband was able to help me. Because I was producing so much milk. As I said, I did not want to pump more milk because honestly, sometimes I felt a bit like a milk truck. So I just decided to just go only with the breast.
So
Have
you were
that option.
breastfeeding and then you were using formula rather than breastfeeding and using
exactly. So the bottle I introduced on month 2 was a formula. And what I found, again, maybe this is in my head, but I actually think it actually helped. As soon as I introduced the bottle of formula, I found that Isabella was sleeping through the night.
That's really interesting. Well, first of all, can we myth bust this idea that like giving a dummy, giving a bottle, is that the end for somebody of their breastfeeding experience?
It's not necessarily the end. So every time we introduce a bottle and we it basically affects milk production. So it can have a knock-on effect that way. Some people might express milk, but that also can come with its own challenges where people can still get some of that engorgement and also risks of mastitis and breast inflammation and all sorts of things like that. Sometimes babies are really smart and they're like, I want it from the tap. I want it from the tap only. And so sometimes we might introduce the bottle earlier, but it might be like, let's just try one bottle at week 4 on a Sunday. Doesn't even have to be a full bottle, can just be a few mils so that we know that baby can take that bottle. And then we can do it again next week. And then if baby isn't taking that bottle, we can increase the amount of time. So it doesn't have to be this everyday sort of thing.
And Arielle, is there any truth behind that formula?
When it comes down to the formula as the night thing, sleep's a developmental skill. So breast milk versus formula, breast milk is more easily digestible. Formula, it is going to be harder for them to digest, just like in some of the foods that we eat that might not be easier for us to digest. Our body kind of has to start and work harder to digest that. Makes us sometimes very, very, very sleepy. Actually, statistics show that breastfed babies and their parents actually get more sleep for a longer period of time than bottle-fed babies. But that's not an experience that every single human has. But yay for sleeping babies. That's fantastic. And I love that you found something that worked really, really well for you and gave you the sleep that you needed.
Just practically for you as a mum, what benefit did you get from not exclusively breastfeeding?
Can I say, be natural and not only as a mom, but like just being able to also have a wine, actually being able to even just switch off. I'm not saying that I was going with my friends every day or at all, because of course you're with the baby constantly, but just even to be able to have a wine and just forget about it, or like literally having my husband to give the bottle, that meant that I could go to bed at 9 o'clock and then he was giving the midnight formula bottle.
I really respect that. And I think that's the kind of thing that a lot of people will also really enjoy hearing.
Maybe it's a bit selfish, but one of the best feelings I had from the whole of having Isabella has been breastfeeding, even that it has been very challenging. The bond and everything I created was amazing, but I wanted to have my life back in a way. And I wanted to go back to my routine, to my life. And don't I actually did felt a bit judged, probably in my head. I felt bad stopping. I stopped like a month, 5.5, 6. And I think that's why I did it.
I think you explored the things that worked best for your family. So for me, sleep was very, very important too. I definitely woke up many times at night, especially with the first baby, and looked over at my husband with his very useless nipples. And he would make comments like, do you want me just to get some formula? And I'd be like, "Ugh, yes, no, I don't know. This is really, really tough. But he did things that really helped me too. So he would baby wear the baby in the nighttime and in the early morning. So he would do this period between like 9 and midnight, and I could sleep those 3 hours. And just having that period of uninterrupted sleep really helped.
Vitu, you've spoken about how your husband was able to help you with some of the positioning and the feeding other than just the bottle feeding as well, right?
Yeah, I remember him like learning all the different like positions, like watching YouTube videos like for hours because I could not. And that's another thing, like it is true that on that moment you're on constant learning. It's not only like breastfeeding, but it's just like how to change a nappy. Like it can be a poo explosion. You're in constant learning. I had like so much information that I could not assimilate more, but that is something that my husband did for me. Like he was helping me to do this and exploring this. He would get frustrated the same way as if it was me, if I was not getting that position right.
Important for people listening to this to know that it's not just their load alone to bear.
Yeah.
You can bring your partner, whether that's a male partner or a non-birthing partner, on the journey with you. I've heard from other people that it can often feel really powerless when your partner is the one who's having to get up constantly and is the only person who can actually feed your baby. Could we talk a little bit about gadgets and stuff? I'm absolutely enraptured by this kit that my friends come out with when we went on holiday recently. Like, that they're so subtle, some of them. Some of them are amazing, whereas others look like you're something out of the Matrix. You kind of feel like they must have been in the family for generations. So I would love to know, firstly, V2, what did you use that you would use again?
Yeah. So I would say one of the first things that I always find with baby showers is like everyone just wants to get like the breast pump or like things that they're actually quite expensive. And for me, it's just like, no, don't buy that things yet because for example, I think they're like £300, something like that. I was gonna buy one, and I ended not using at all the breast pump because for me, the amount of milk I was producing, if I was using that breast pump, then I will produce more. Hand expression was much easier or beneficial for me. I think my favorite was one like milk collector, which is kind of like a round circle nipple that collects milk. You have one there, Arielle. I love it. And there you go. Exactly that. So like if Isabella was breastfeeding for one, then I had another one on the other breast because that other breast is leaking and it just basically collected. I think that one was amazing, and also because it helped with the irritation of the nipple. So even if it was leaking, I had the breast pad, which obviously that's an essential if you don't want to walk around constantly with with t-shirts, or like oh, the breast pads they're amazing, but that was also amazing. Although it was quite tricky because it actually has some holes on the top. So if I was just putting the baby back to sleep after they're breastfeeding, all the milk will come up.
Arielle, what would you say?
So, like, a lot of times people well intended be like, oh, go reach for that purple tube, which is lanolin based. Lanolin was one of the top allergens. So then you see this contact dermatitis. People end up having like burning, stinging nipples. I usually say if you don't have any allergen to things like organic, extra virgin olive oil or coconut oil, and then you can cut out parchment paper. Those are things that you don't have to buy. A lot of us have them in our kitchens, just a little circle, and then just a little bit of that on your nipple and lock in a little bit of moisture. If you're in V2's case, you probably would need to have some sort of breast pad over it if you're gonna leak. But not everybody leaks. And also, just to put this out there, just because you don't leak doesn't mean that you don't have a good milk supply. I've seen people very similar to V2 that could feed the entire town, but they don't leak milk at all, or people who leak a lot but really struggle with milk supplies.
But you actually don't know how much milk the baby's taking out from your breast?
No.
No.
Right, like I said, your milk is bespoke. It's exclusively made for your baby and everything, so
The
it's
same
not comparable.
the same as the time, right? It doesn't really matter if I am feeding my baby for 20 minutes than if mom is feeding for 50 minutes.
I usually say when it comes down to feeding, try to always feed both breasts. So I have moms, and I think this is not covered a lot in your antenatal classes, listening for the swallows. So a baby will make this like cute little soft popping sound, like this little like you can hear those swallows. And when those swallows start to kind of really slow down, I would just have moms maybe do just a gentle compression on their breast just to get more swallows going, and then go switch to the other side. Because if we're feeding our babies for, long periods of time, if they're not swallowing, they're not getting milk. So I find you can reduce the amount of time that a baby's at a breast and reduce the amount of nipple problems and challenges if we are doing effective feeding. In the nighttime, we actually have this really
Proteins.
cool amino acid called tryptophan, which acts like melatonin and helps induce sleep. So typically, they'll get a longer sleep period after this like period of cluster feeding. So milk is changing, it's all the time. Sometimes they're getting more, sometimes they're getting less. Sometimes it's more liquidy and hydrating when it's super duper hot outside. Like
Yeah.
it's just crazy, but
Yeah.
it can't really compare your milk to someone else's milk or the length of your feed, because babies all feed differently, their stomach capacity, everything. It's just so different.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. So V2, just to kind of round off your story, I'd love to know if you were to give one piece of advice to somebody who either is about to start their breastfeeding journey or is on it and is really struggling, what would that be?
From me, I would be, don't be that hard on yourself, I think. Don't put extra pressure on yourself to just keep going, keep going, keep going. Trust your gut, like feel like you're gonna be an excellent mom no matter what. And if you actually need to do one bottle here because you're exhausted or whatever, and you need your partner, your mom, whatever, to help you, just do it. And I know it sounds maybe very dreamy saying all this, but it is true. Like you're doing incredible. And trust whatever you think is best. The last advice is it is incredibly hard. You can get there, and I'm so sure that if you actually keep trying, you will get it.
Arielle, we've obviously spoken a lot today about how important it is to be informed when it comes to choosing what's right for you on your infant feeding journey. Where can people actually get that information?
If we're going to just speak specifically about the UK, reach out to your midwife and your health visitor. You can also look out for a infant feeding support group or a breastfeeding support group. Some of those might be La Leche League, or they might be Association of Breastfeeding Mothers, ABM, or all of those different associations. You might even have an IBCLC. Like I run an infant feeding support group because I want all babies of all ways of feeding and parents to be able to come to those groups, because we all need support in caring for our little tiny humans. So look out for those resources. But I think starting on the right path, like joining something when you're pregnant, can be so incredibly beneficial, because learning a new skill when you have a brand new human is so much harder to do than kind of trying to digest that information while you're pregnant. So making sure that you do have some antenatal resources that you can rely back on. I know that a lot of those groups will have free antenatal resources. Some will have some paid ones, and really trying to get that antenatal education. I think what's really cool about this whole forum is we've got 3 totally different phases of humans in different phases of life. And I think that's what makes this
Totally.
podcast super duper cool. I
See.
loved it so much. So thank you so much for having me and creating this forum.
Because when I actually heard one of your podcasts, Issy, I think it was the one of giving birth, and one of the advice at the end was try to also plan your birth. And one of the things that I just feel there's so much awareness about like giving birth and planning your birth and all that, but I don't know if actually it would be good advice of like plan your breastfeeding journey. If you actually get exactly like as much information as possible ahead of time, it would make a huge difference. Yeah.
I think the challenge that I find is everything is about your healthy pregnancy and how the heck that baby is going to get out. And when is that baby going to come out? And I do remember at the last minute being like, oh no, this baby's coming. And I have no idea how to feed it. It is natural, but we were
To do
also
it.
designed as humans
Yeah.
to also have support. And we don't live in homes of multi-generational support. We're missing some of that educational link. And then we get here and we're isolated and our partners are back at work. And it's hard and there's no one around to help guide us.
I think this is where we have this amazing ability to use like social media to share this information. We just need the right people to be sharing it so that it's there at people's fingertips when at 3 a.m. they're thinking, what the fuck am I doing? And why is this baby not latching?
People are like, you need to be on TikTok. You need to tell your factual information. So stay tuned. I think it's happening. I know. It needs to happen.
And thank you so much, Arielle, because actually this type of podcast makes it like a source to go very easily if you're 3 o'clock in the morning, because you have people like Arielle that is giving you insights basically from a professional. It's amazing what you're doing, Issy.
Thank you. Thank you both. I know you've given up loads of time today, but I think that just shows how much we could talk about this and how much there is to learn. So yeah, I really, really appreciate both of you. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed recording it. To carry on the conversation, you can find me at 2.much.info.podcast on Instagram. Also, if you like what you heard, then please leave a review and make sure you're following or subscribing wherever you listen or watch. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with the next episode. It's going to be a goodie.